G'day, welcome to another episode of Aaron's Adventures. The adventure we're on today is basically a workshop. There are hundreds of videos out there on YouTube on people's workshops, and some of them are really amazing. Some of them have got some fantastic workshops. The difference with this one is this one's not so much fantastic in the way it looks, but the practicality of it, of a sheer lack of space. That's one problem I've got, is just we're basically going to make a complete workshop that's got everything from your docking saw, table saw, spindle molder, drill press, lathe even, big workbenching area, storage of fittings and fixings, including all power tools, in half a carport. And it's just a standard regular size carport because that's all I've got to work with. So not only that, I'm a bit puffed because I actually went up into the roof. I was going to drop in from above on this thing, and I looked at the height and I thought, nah, we'll go up from underneath. But all this timber is recycled. I haven't paid for pretty much any of it. It's all come from jobs from the past, leftover scrap bits of wood, just from fences and stuff that I've rebuilt, and even the white posts that you see on this workbench that I'm about to do. All of that came from a pergola. I mentioned this pergola actually in my other video, the anchor anything to a wall video, that there's a pergola I built, and fortunately the customers let me have the leftover wood from the old pergola, and I'm reusing that old Jarrah, and we're going to recycle that and turn it into a beautiful bench top. And the rest of it, I'll give you a quick tour. This is just a standard carport. You know, roller door, probably get rid of that in the end, and we're just going to use just one half of it. The rest of it is really just become storage, but we're going to have everything there. Okay, well, I've already made a start at it. I didn't really want to bother wasting your time showing you how it is that I did that, because all the tips and techniques of how it is I've done it is already in my how to anchor anything to a wall video. It's all there. It's exactly the same. It's just slightly magnified up in terms of size. I still use the blue wall plugs. No different, same technique, exactly the same method as before, just scaled it up slightly larger. And again, it all looks a bit, you know, bits of bric-a-brac and a bit tutti frutti on the whole thing. But again, everything is just recycled from old jobs and all in the past. Even the bits of panel, I used to be a cabinet maker, and this was all left over from the company. When it shut down, I managed to get a hold of a whole heap of this panel that they were throwing out. You probably might, if you've ever watched my really stupid videos on Get Forked, that was back in the day when the company was closing down and we had to basically vacate everything out of the premises, and so I managed to score a lot of this stuff. But again, all of this timber is recycled from old materials. So it's cost me literally nothing. Even a lot of these screws and bits and pieces, the company was throwing out like wads of screws, and bolts, because they just had to get rid of it. On here we will have the lathe. This is what I'm going to quickly show you today, but I'm going to do it in high speed. There's nothing really to learn, but it's just kind of fun watching high speed videos. I always like the high speed ones. They're always really cool. Just wish the job got done at that speed. Shelving under there, crates underneath. I still wanted to keep all the base area open so I can sweep out from underneath. Later on we'll even include a dust extraction system, which is why I've deliberately left a gap at the back of this, because I'm going to make a trough that runs at the back so that all these shavings will basically blow down and get sucked down into that trough in up underneath. But this is just more of a fun video that if you can get some tips from it, that's something that might have helped you doing your workshop, great. If not, just enjoy the high speed bit. You can see I've just added some little brackets up here just to give it extra support so that all the shelving, basically the weight is distributed throughout the whole lot. They're all joined up. There's a lot of weight there, and you can imagine nuts and bolts and fittings, they really do add up in weight. There's a good couple of 100 kilos of fittings just in there. They haven't been sorted out yet. There's still a bit of a mess. But the interesting part, I'll stop talking in a moment, we'll just get into it, is the method in which I'm going to make this. Is going to be a little bit crude, but it should work, because you notice the table saw that I is to wheel out, it's not there yet. I haven't built it. We have to make that first. So it's the chicken before the egg thing. So I'm just going to utilise a good old-fashioned Hitachi C9 saw. That's about 19 years old, that baby, and just a bit of rough few bits of wood just smacked together with a piece of plywood to make a rather crude table saw, but it should do the job. So no further to do, let's get on with it. Well then, after that really boring bit, and now I look absolutely fantastic with all this dust and all over myself, I can now take off my safety boots, can now take off my mask and my goggles and my safety earmuffs and all that stuff, and take off the cover guard off the saw. It's, now we've got these bits here, been paralleled up. Quick summary as to what I've just done, and if I don't voice it over during the music, which I might just do that actually, but just a quick repeat in case I don't get around to that, is doing 3 passes. I got it roughly flat and straight with the planer. Not a very good one, that one, but it does the trick. So obviously it's not perfect. Then by passing it 3 times, I've taken it now down to 95 millimeters. I think it's just a smidgen under, to get then the 9 pieces across to get the size that we want. You can get the calculator out and work out what the end result is on that one. By doing it 3 times, basically the first pass sort of straightens up the outer edge that obviously hasn't been planed. Then we reverse it again, because that side will now be more square and straight, so that it then cuts the other side a lot more straighter again. And then on the final cut, which is the one I just did, I made sure that the measurements were spot on, and then reversed it again, and that gives us a relatively parallel piece. Of course, in this direction it is not straight. I'm not worried about the underside. It is just a workbench after all. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to coat the top anyways. To have the bottom underneath coated as well is obviously to our advantage. As I explained in the how to anchor anything to a wall video, I did cover all those aspects about, you know, coating timber and coating it all around. But basically I'm just going to put them all together and then get the belt sander out if the difference isn't too bad, and then just sand the bejeepers out of it to make it all level. If that doesn't pay off as being feasible, it's going to take too long if there's too much difference between them. What I will do then is I'll put them on edge, find out what a good size is, and then run them off to the table saw. The table saw is not going to be high enough, but I can run it through and then flip it over and then run it back again to then at least get it roughly correct, and then I can belt sand it all to a nice finish. But it's coming along. That's the worst of it out of the way. So let's move on to the next bit. Okay, so just a heads up, all we've done, so as you probably just quickly saw, I've just planed off one side. So we paralleled up one side, we paralleled up the other with the same saw, and just again using cheap tools. There's still a bit of green left, but that doesn't matter, because if we have one bad side will face down, one good side face up, it doesn't matter as long as we've got something that's relatively straight. And because what we really should use is what's known as a surface planer or thicknesser, and then you just feed it through that and it just carves it out at perfectly the same thickness as the side underneath it, which would be great to have, but we don't. We've only got this little baby here, which is just very makeshift and cheap, which a lot of people also don't have thousands of dollars to spend on a good thicknesser. So we're just going to get our flat side, which we've now got against our piece of American white oak, and because we've got each side parallel, we can skim through one. It's not going to make it all the way through. Then we're just going to flip it up the other way, skim it through again, and that should give us exactly 30 millimeters, and then make each one of them exactly the same. We can then clamp it down and then just sand the whole lot flat on the top, and it should come up looking not half bad for a makeshift bit of junk. So let's get into it. Recap, basically we've sort of done it. Like all I've had to do is just chop that out with that. Actually just used a jigsaw and the radial arm saw, just cut out what it is I could with the even just with the hand saw, and then just finish the corner off with the jigsaw just to cut those corner bits out. That was out of one piece, well, one long length of that we had extra, and one long length of that front bit, which I sort of tried to level off there with that. And we've got 9, it's all the same. I just docked them off square, obviously doing that last like I mentioned. And then solid Jarrah bench that has literally cost nothing to build. Obviously it's not quite, haven't got to level it off. It hasn't done a perfect job, just being a saw that we've had to flip through it twice. It's got a bit of a lip, but we're just going to sand this back. I'm going to just go across on the diagonal. A little bit of a rusty head, I don't mind that, it kind of goes with it really. So I'm going to use a bunch of recycled screws. So recycled timber, recycled everything. All this video is just to show that you can build something without having to cut a tree down and go and buy brand new timber. Whereas sometimes the old timber's better. and it would have been there for more than 50 years. So there's like add 50 years to that whenever it was milled, you know, and taken out there. So you're talking more than half a century old, and that's why it's so stable. It's not going to move. If it would have ever moved in time, it would have done it over the last half century. So it sometimes can be better than buying new timber these days, which is often plantation and it's kiln dried and it dries a little bit too quickly, and then in time they can move and shift on you, whereas old stuff is guaranteed. So go to a recycling yard, look around. All this was scheduled to be thrown into the bin. Like I said, the people are going to get a skip bin and chuck this out. And I said, hang on a minute, I'll have that. I didn't know what it was for at the time, but now we do. Let's get on with it. So we've got to this stage, we've belt sanded it pretty much even. In the end I'm probably going to put a mat on this thing anyway, and carpet, or your lathe's going to go on a rubber mount, so you won't even see half of it anyway. I must confess, I'm getting a little on the pedantic side now. I went down to 150 grit in the end, just to get rid of this, because it was just coming up beautiful. The more perfect I was getting it, it was like the more I was just loving it. Look at this. This was going in the rubbish bin. Cost nothing. We've saved it from becoming landfill. And this happens a lot, not realising the absolute gold that's underneath it and what it could have been. We'll wait till we get a finish on this. It's going to look even better. Nice little bit of gum vein there, that looks alright. I put the worst piece up to the back, but because you end up with tools and stuff there anyway, so who cares. But I've seen people's coffee tables that are worse than this, and we're just going to bang stuff around on it. You know, stick a vice there and just put a ladle on the top and shove a mat on there. But that is absolutely magic. Look at that. That's the moral of the story of this video. Why did I do it? It's just a bit of encouragement, just to save another tree. Every time you buy timber from the shop, they have to replace that stock. You know, it's not like, oh, I think it doesn't make any difference because the wood was already sitting there on the rack, but as it goes down, they have to replace that stock, and then the timber mills have to replace their stock, and then another tree gets cut down. And with all the bushfires that Australia has just suffered, you've got to remember all those houses need to be rebuilt, and there's even less forest to do it with. So yeah, look at that. I'm going to put some finish on this now. I want to see this. This is going to look magic. I'll just use linseed oil. I'm kind of tempted to put a nice varnish or something on it, just, you know, buff and polish wax finish, something like that. But you know, like I could have used this timber in the end for a coffee table or something magic like that. But no, it's just a workbench. Absolutely magic. All right, next step. Let's go. This for free. Even we got this for free as well, because I've nicked it off my parents. Looks like a dining table, and it's just a workbench. Costs you nothing. Just beautiful. So much better than it becoming landfill. So yeah, we are coming in closing. Basic tools. Quick flash of yeah, that's all we used. Just tools like that. Cheap, simple. Even just the cost of all of those tools are still less than a thicknesser or a surface planer. So it can be done. You can go from this, you know, just a rubbishy looking chunk of pergola, and turn it into that. Save a tree, save yourself some money. It can be done. Absolutely beautiful. If you've come this far, then you've enjoyed the high speed and enjoyed the video. There'll be plenty more videos to come. We've got some great ideas for that. You're welcome to hit subscribe if you want to join in, then please do. It's up to you. All the best, and hey, thanks for watching. Hope you had fun. Cheers.